What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the DK Garage. I'm Jeremy, that's Joe, and this is the Race Day Rundown.
We're at Dover International Speedway, the Monster Mile this week. We've got 400 miles of short track action. It's going to be a lot of fun. Short track action means a lot of laps, 400 of them this week. Performance points.
Yeah, they're going to be key, just like they were last week. I think that we'll get a little bit more spread out than last week. Truex basically took all of them. But yeah, with this race, we have a potential of 280 performance points. So getting those dominators in your lineup is key. And if we do have one driver who runs away with it and you don't have them, well, we'll try again next week. But it's going to be a long race. The stages are a little longer as well. We got 120 in the first stage and the second stage. And then we get 160 laps in that third stage. Last time we were here, Kevin Harvick won, and he did dominate. I think he led like 264 laps or something like that. So it is possible to have a runaway dominator, but we'll see if we get that this week.
Yeah, we've got three guys at the top of the salary board that really offer a lot of similar paths to value. We went really into detail about those drivers in our podcast. That link's up above, so go check it out if you've got some time. Martin Truex is at the top of the salary board this week. He's starting first on the pole after last week's domination at Darlington, starting 11-9. I've given him a 9 on the impact score this week because I think you can't ignore his 3 wins, and in a 750 setup again here, it could be another performance where he could really dominate.
I gave him a 9 as well. And it's probably as close to a 10 as I could possibly get without giving him a 10. And that's because, I really like Larson and even Hamlin's potential this week. We'll get to him in just a second. But really, for me, all 3 drivers are right there, neck and neck. It's very tough to decide this week. I think you're going to be just building one lineup around Truex and another around Larson and then another around Hamlin. I don't think you're going to end up being able to stack them together. So I'm at a 9 for Truex. And when it comes to Larson, who's next on the board, 11,500, starting 4th, he was the only guy who was able to kind of run Truex down at Darlington. Got to his bumper, just, I guess, burned up his equipment a little bit. But I'm at a 9 with Larson as well.
Yeah, I think I'm at a 9 as well because this is a track that position is going to be key. He's got the position this week compared to last week. He doesn't have to fight as hard for those positions to get to Martin Truex. It's going to be tough passing for everyone this week, but Kyle Larson could have an opportunity to do so, and he's got a little bit of place differential upside, albeit 3 spots. You pick up any sort of value you can at a track like this.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is paying attention to tech this week. If you see one of these guys starting towards the front, and if they fail tech, they can still be viable. They can still get back in it within that first stage. But if we do get that situation where one of these guys doesn't fail and he ends up dominating most of the race, even if the other guy makes his way back up there, it's not going to be worth it. So I think really pay attention to tech, see if anyone fails. But yeah, when it comes to the guy next on the board, Denny Hamlin, 11-1, starting second. It's when you look at the stats, Truex, Larson, Hamlin, they're all within the top 5 within the last 6 races on the driver rating. Very close in salary, starting positions. It's practically a coin flip for me between these 3 guys this week. I gave Hamlin an 8, just a little less than the other 2, but I think he's going to have a good showing.
I've got him at a 9 because I think he could be the driver that dominates. He's on the front row. He gets out in front of Truex. He could establish himself as that dominator. He's got a discount of $800. I like him a lot this week.
And he's been one of the best guys all year. So you can't ignore that fact either.
Especially in the 750 horsepower package, which we have this week. Chase Elliott, 10-7, is next, starting 8th. He has a potential for getting some place differentials since he is 8th. He's been fast. Haven't seen him really step up and get that win yet. It could be a good spot for him. Could be a little bit under-owned with the people paying attention to those 3 drivers we just got done talking about.
Yeah, I think he's kind of a sneaky play this week. I gave him a 9. I like him. He's had good runs here. He's had some troubling runs. You don't quite know what you're going to get with Chase Elliott and that team, but I'm seeing improvements. I think they're going to start getting to that point in the season where they're going to be contending for wins more consistently, and it might start this week. I really think Chase Elliott's in a good spot, even though I feel like he's a little higher price than what I'd like to pay for him. It is what it is.
Brad Keselowski's next, 10-3, starting 15th. He's a guy that offers a path to place differential potential, but passing a lot of cars here isn't easy. He hasn't had the greatest 750 racing history this year. I've gave him an 8. I think he could be that place differential guy that you need, but there could be some guys below him that have a better chance for that value.
Yeah, and he was one of the best drivers on 750 last year, so it's a little strange that they're having some trouble. It's going to happen some. I think Penske overall, his teammate Logano has been one of the best at 750s. So as long as they don't bring the car that they had last week at Darlington to this race, I think they will move up. But you're going to need him to get kind of close to a top 5 to really be worth it. And he's certainly capable of doing it. That's why I gave him an 8. There is value there, like you mentioned.
Kyle Busch is next, $10,000 for him this week, starting 6th. He's kind of in an awkward spot with that price tag and his starting position. It's really difficult unless he gets out and establishes himself as a dominator to pay off that price tag, and we just haven't seen the speed and consistency from that team. I'm giving him a 7 because of that.
I actually am at a 7 as well. It looks like this week we are really close on a lot of our impact scores. I think we kind of see this slate very similar. It's going to be a tough one. I kind of think from Chase Elliott down to Logano, you're getting very similar plays. Diversity is going to be key. But out of those that I just mentioned in between that group, Kyle Busch would be my least favorite just because I don't know if he's going to get out front and dominate. But he did lead some laps at Darlington last week, and if it wasn't for a tire that went down and then Truex passing him there, and he raced his way all the way back up to, I think it was top 3 finish, maybe that's a good spot to try to attack because I think other people are going to be feeling the same way about him, paying $10,000 for him. I think he might go a little lower owned.
Kevin Harvick's next, 9,800, starting 5th. I think he's very similar to what you just described with Kyle Busch, but he has more established track history, if you want to say that, recently. Even though we're looked at a lot of comparison data in our podcast, I've got Kevin Harvick at an 8 here. I think he has a little bit more potential to be able to have a solid finish.
I gave him a 9, and that's because in the last 6 races, his average finish is 3.3. And he, like I mentioned earlier, he dominated the most recent race here. We haven't seen that from him this year. We've documented, and a lot of people have documented, the Stewart-Haas struggles as an organization. But you start breaking down some of the more recent races, he's getting better. He led some laps last week. He drifted back, but then he raced his way back up to the front. So I think Harvick is in a really good spot to get a little overlooked around some of the guys above him and below him. And if they just hit that setup just right, they could pull off a Truex type race like he had last week. So I really like Harvick this week. It is risky. I'm not the most confident in it, but man, the stats speak for themselves.
We'll find out if it pays off. I think the next guy, though, is, in my opinion, my favorite play on the board. Joey Logano, $9,500. He's starting 9th. I've given him an impact score of 9 because I think he finds that right balance of salary, starting position with that place differential, and then the car and the ability to be a dominator. You're finding value under $10,000 this week. I think he's the guy to go to.
I gave him a 9 as well. I like Logano a lot, and if you're just comparing 750s, he's been better than Harvick, so I think it's a safer play. I think he started 12th last week, and he'd raced his way up to 3rd or 4th before a speeding penalty late on pit road that ended up putting him like a lap or 2 down. At that point, you're just trying to get the best day possible. I think they finished like 12th or 13th, something like that. So that really didn't show how good he had really run most of the day. Obviously, nothing looked good compared to Truex, but it is what it is. But I do agree. I think Logano is a very solid play on this slate, and maybe another guy that goes a little lower owned based on his stats aren't as good compared to the other guys we've already talked about.
Somebody I know you're all over this week, Alex Bowman, 9,200 starting 16th. We both given him an 8 on our impact score. I know we've gone to him a couple times, and he's kind of the every other race kind of driver here recently. I think this week potentially we talked about some of these guys being starved for value in the path unless they're dominating. He has a path with place differential, and then if he can get some fastest laps, which Hendrick's been fast, could be a nice person to put into your lineup.
Yeah, I think so. Now we're getting to that group where we're going to be looking at Bowman, Kurt Busch, and Eric Almirola as the PD plays on the slate that are not, over 10K like Brad is. I think Bowman's going to have the best equipment out of those three guys. I'm giving him an 8. I think he's in a good spot, but he's, like you mentioned, it's kind of like, what are we going to get from him? It's really hard to judge. He's been the most inconsistent of all the Hendrick cars, but he's also has a win, and he's had some really good races from a DraftKings perspective. I think you got to play him this week, but I do think he's going to be splitting ownership a lot with Kurt Busch and Almirola. So we'll see how that one plays out, but I do think Bowman is a solid play this week.
Well, you mentioned Kurt Busch. He's a couple spots down. I think we talk about him and Almirola together because they're kind of in the same place differential play. Kurt Busch, 8,700, starting 28th. He finds that rare path to place differential that we need to reach that value point. He's not starting too far back, and he should be in good enough equipment where he shouldn't have to worry about going a lap down early, but it could be possible. That's the only caveat there with him starting so far back. Almirola, kind of the same story.
Yeah, I'm going to give Kurt Busch a 9. I think he's got a stronger... He's had a lot of bad luck like Almirola has, but he's had races where he's looked better than Almirola has at pretty much any point this year. So I feel like you're going to get a little bit the consistent... I just think Kurt Busch has a better chance of getting you the value that you need just based on what we've seen this year. So I'm going to give him a 9. But when it comes to Almirola, I'm at an 8, which is way higher than I think I've given him so far this year. I think he'll do better than he did at Darlington. He was I believe our red flag for Darlington, and he crashed out almost immediately. I don't think we're going to see that from them. The team, they've shown some better speed. He's just got to keep it clean and not go a lap down early. I think he can do that this week, so I think he is usable for sure.
Yeah, it's 8,200, starting 32nd. I've given him a 7 because he offers that great upside with the place differential. Hopefully they can capitalize and have some better luck. Two guys that we jumped over, William Byron starting third, 8,900, and Ryan Blaney, 8,400, starting 7th, are very similar plays where we can find some value.
We pointed this out in the podcast. To me,
track position's key. These guys find themselves in the top 10 already.
Yeah, Blaney's got a little better PD upside, but he doesn't have the best track history here. Not the worst, but he does have, it's a little spotty. So is Byron, but Byron has been exceeding his career stats so far this year in basically every race. For me, William Byron, I'm going to give a 7, and I'm going to give Blaney a 7 as well. They're the same, but if I'm picking between the two, I'm favoring William Byron in this case, even though he is starting third. I think he's just run a little bit better on these types of tracks, and he's just on a heater right now. So that's where I'm going between those two.
Christopher Bell, $8,000, starting 11th. Somebody I'm high on. I've given him an 8 as an impact. He's got a pretty consistent set of finishes. I think that this type of track and style of racing is beneficial to him. I like him a lot this week. He's a green flag in our race guide this week in our driver spotlight.
Yeah, I gave him a 9 this week. I'm on him even a little higher than you. I don't think he has to do that much to hit that value, only being 8,000. He looked really good at Darlington. If it wasn't for a tire going down late in the race and having to come to pit road, I think he was going to get top 6, top 5. He was even higher than that early in the race. Just looked good overall. He's been pretty good this year. I really do like Christopher Bell. So I said I could give him a 9. But the guy below him, Matty D, 7,800, starting 18th. I feel like I'm going to give him an 8, which is a little higher than what you're going to give him. I like the PD upside, but I don't know if he's going to truly pay off this week because it's not going to be the best track for him.
It's going to be. He's in an interesting spot. I've given him a 7 because I think starting 18th, he's somebody that could be able to establish himself as somebody that can make some passes and stick his nose out there and make it stick in a couple of spots where you need him to. It could be a GPP play. I'm not on him in a cash game scenario, though.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I thought he would do a little better at Darlington, and to me, Darlington and Dover are very similar, and the fact that he finished, I think it was about 18th, they just missed the setup, so we'll see what happens. But a guy that I think you're pretty high on, I'm high on, and it's not because I'm overly thrilled to play him. It's just we're starting to get into that part on the slate where we're starved for really good value. Cole Custer starting 30th, 7,700. I got to give him a 9 because I think his average finish last year was 10.5. That's pretty good, especially because he was a rookie last year. If he can keep it clean starting 30th, there's a lot of PD upside there. What do you think about Custer this week?
I've given him an 8 because I think he has a lot to offer. He's somebody that will be able to potentially run a different groove than everybody else, even though there's really a lot of one groove racing here. He might stick his nose out and be able to find it and make it stick. He's got some success here in some of the other series. I like him a lot. So I think he's somebody we can look at to find that value that we're looking for. The two drivers next, teammates Tyler Reddick and Austin Dillon on the slate. 7,600 for Tyler Reddick starting 12th and 7,400 starting 14th. Austin Dillon. I think we're both see them in similar spots. Offer a top 15 upside. Where they start, they don't have to pass a lot of cars and don't have to do a lot if they can maintain those starting positions with those price tags. Both of them are relevant.
Yeah, I gave both of them an 8. I think this could be a good race for RCR as a whole. Tyler Reddick, he can run the high line that he likes to run. He was looking great most of the day at Darlington, drifted back towards the end. Dillon, he had moments where he looked good and then not so good. But he's had some good success here at Dover recently. And even though normally I wouldn't like playing these guys at this price tag starting where they're at, I think they don't need to do much to really hit their value, and I think they're more than capable of doing it. And maybe, again, you get a little lower ownership there because you're going to have Cole Custer right above him with that 30th starting position, a lot of PD. And then you got some guys below him, and it's going to be really interesting to see how a lot of people just construct their lineups, and maybe Reddick and Dillon are guys that just get a little overlooked. So I'm big fans of both of them at this race.
I think from here the waters get muddied. We've got a couple drivers that we'll talk about, some guys that we'll caution you about, and then a lot of these guys won't be relevant. Eric Jones and Ricky Stenhouse are very similar plays, very similar price tags and starting positions. Eric Jones, 7,200, starting 23rd. I've given him a 6. Ricky Stenhouse, 7,100, starting 20th. I've given him a 7. I think he offers a little bit more speed than Eric Jones. We've seen that. Those two guys I'm not super high on with the configurations, but ones I want to have a little bit of exposure with.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to end up with either of these guys. I gave them both 6s. I think they're in play. Like I said, we're kind of starved for good value down this low, which we're not even that low on the salary board, but it's tough this week. So I don't think I'm going to end up with most of them. I'll probably play a few guys below this price tag to try to fit a few more higher price guys. I think that's the way I'm going to end up. So for me, they're both the 6, not super high on. Surprisingly, when we started looking at everything, the next guy on the list, Bubba Wallace, 6,900, starting 22nd. You would think that 20 seconds is good PD upside. I think this could be another race where Bubba kind of struggles. maybe he can get a top 20th. But I find his path to value very difficult. I actually gave Bubba a 3 this week. I think it's going to be very hard for him to pay off in lineups.
Yeah, I've given him a 3 as well. It's just in this package and his driver rating and everything, he's about 21st, 22nd place with all of that, and he's starting 22nd in a place that's very difficult to pass in. He doesn't offer a lot of upside. There's not a lot of value to be had down low, but I think there's better drivers to be able to achieve that at this point in the season. Ryan Newman, 6,800, starting 13th. Isn't an awkward spot, starting 13th. Track position's key, but I don't know if he's got the equipment to maintain that. We'll see. It's just difficult.
I was on Newman last week, and he got a top 10. Looked good, looked pretty good the whole race, and we saw it. We saw it in the recent stats. But if we kind of use the same method to pinpoint what we think Newman will do this week, it says don't play him, or at least be cautious. I think you mentioned in the podcast he's won, 3 or 4 times?
Yeah. 3.
Three times at this track in his career, which is very impressive because Newman doesn't have a ton of wins across the board. So the fact that he's got 3 here is really impressive. But
wait, it is 4.
It is 4.
With 4 different drivers. That would be Kyle Busch, Martin Truex, Ryan Newman, and Kevin Harvick.
So 4 of his career wins, and again, I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but he doesn't have a ton. Of course, most of these wins came kind of earlier in his year or in his career. Recently, Newman has struggled at this track, and the fact that he's starting 13th, if he's able to get into the top 10, then he's worth it. We give him our yellow flag, so it's not a full fade. It's just, it's more than likely it's not going to pay out the way you want. So I gave Newman a 4.
I've given him a 5 because I think with that history, he does have the ability to be able to have a top 10. He is our yellow flag for a reason because there is a lot of risk there. A couple drivers down below really are guys we'll talk about. There's like we said, we're star for value down low. I'm going to go ahead and talk about Daniel Suarez, 6,300, starting 24th. I think he's one of these guys down on this portion of the slate that stands out to me. I've given him a 7 because I think he can get in the top 20 potentially. We've seen some speed in this package, so he could potentially get a couple fastest laps, and that right there would be what you need to really maybe open the door for some of those guys higher up on the slate.
Yeah, I gave Suarez a 6, but I'm right there with you. I mean, if you look at the guys around him, I have them all rated a little lower. You can see that in our race guide. I do like Suarez. I think you're going to end up playing a decent amount of them to make lineups work. But it's a little tough because even if he only gets, if he can get 20th, that's good. It's hard to say with Suarez. So I'm in agreement with you. I like the pick, but I'm not in love with it. And then when really you start to go down, for me personally, as we look at the rest of the slate, there's not a ton of guys that I like. McDowell, I think, is right on that edge where he could work out, but it's tough. Briscoe's getting better, but inconsistent. We've both been on Priest quite a bit the last few races. Starting 25th, I gave him, and at 5,900, I think he's going to have to be in your lineups. You gave him a 5. I only gave him a 4. Are you seeing something a little bit more out of the Priest side than what maybe I am?
Well, he's got a little bit more speed. He's Stenhouse's teammate, and they've been fairly consistent in the 750 horsepower setup. I think that he would be somebody that you might look at. That's why I've given him a 5. You are starving for value. You need something.
Yeah, and then for me personally, I mean, LaJoie and Alfredo, they may make your lineups. I can see, you have Alfredo at a 5. I gave Alfredo a 3. He's starting 27th at 5,500. I think he can work out. Not great. For me personally, the only other guy that I would personally give a shout out to, and it's more just a recognition thing, is Josh Berry. He's filling in for Justin Haley. Haley's out with COVID. So Josh Berry's making his Cup debut in the 77. Haley's not gotten much out of that car this year. I like Barry as a racer, so it'll be interesting to see if he can take advantage of this. For me personally, I gave him a 4. I know you're at a 2, and I was at a 2 with Haley before. So my rating is a little bit more just on maybe wanting Barry to do well, full disclosure. But really, I think below him, I don't think there's really anybody that's will work out in your lineups.
Yeah, it's going to be we're star for value down low, so having the balanced lineup is going to be key this week, and having the right dominator is definitely the way you want to be able to build your lineup. We'll just have to find out who that is.
Well, this was good. I think we've really explained the slate as best we can because it is challenging. I think the next thing that we really need to explain to people is this is their last week to get entered in for a chance to win one of these potentially 2 giveaway boxes of 2021 Donruss Racing. You want to tell them how they can snag one?
Well, something that's not challenging is to enter. It's very easy to enter. All you have to do is there's a link below to our Twitter. There is a post that is pinned on our Twitter that you can go like, retweet, and then tag 3 of your friends. And that's it. It's super simple. We had a lot of engagement last week. We appreciate that. And he said we're giving away 1. And if we can get to 200 subscribers here on YouTube along with this, we're going to be giving away both of them. So it's super easy. Make sure that you head on over there to Twitter and make it happen. We're excited to for next week. We're going to be at COTA. We'll be having some live engagements. And if we aren't able to get to 200 on YouTube, we'll be busting one of these live there at COTA, at the track, in the RV. So it will be fun regardless, but we really want to get to 200 subscribers on YouTube to give them both away.
Yeah, so like I said, go to Twitter, like it, retweet it, tag your friends, and then share this video too so we can get to 200 so you have double the opportunity to win one of these boxes. We're really excited about it. We're really excited for next week. But you know what? It's race day, and you guys have lineups to build. So go do that. Go get your lineups built. So with all that being said, I'm Jeremy. That's Joe. And this was the Race Day Rundown.